start with the definition of communication. Normally, they can ask the question like, what do you understand by communication? So we know that communication is the information transfer from one point to any other point, or from source to destination, or from one node to any other node, right? So you can have different namings with you, but you can say that the definition of communication can be information transfer, right? Information transfer. In some of the cases, we also say that it can be a data transfer, right? It can be a data transfer, but whenever we say data transfer, right, we always have that intention that the data should always be meaningful, right? Data should always be meaningful. Anything which is not meaningful or which is not relevant, if you are transmitting that thing from one point to any other point, it cannot be treated as communication. So this can be a basic definition for a communication. Then we can ask, what is digital communication? What do you understand by digital communication? So digital communication means that the data or the information, whatever you want to transmit from source to destination, that information should be digital in nature. That information should be digital in nature, right? So if you are going to transmit digital data or digital information, digital signal from source to destination, then you can say that it is a process of digital communication. Fine. Now, if you mainly summarize this whole communication system, the like digital communication system, right? You always can remember these three figures, right? First finger is about the conversion of analog information to digital information, right? So this is your first finger, the conversion of the analog signal should be converted into digital signal, right? So if this is your first finger, you should always remember it that for the digital communication, the first and the important process is that you have to convert the analog signal into the digital signal. Then the second finger is that how this digital data can be transmitted, right? Then we have to talk about how this digital data can be transmitted. This is your second finger. And the third finger is always about the coding related to digital data. Why I'm saying that this is important, third finger, because you know that in digital communication, the information or the signal is not a natural. It is always in a converted because you know that normally we are having analog signals with us, and normally we speak analog signals and understand analog information. So if you are saying that you are doing digital communication, it means that all the things are converted from analog to some other format. So it means that in the process of those conversion, you are in need of some kind of codings also. So it can be a third important finger for the digital communication. So with these three lines, you can summarize the whole digital communication. That first, you should always remember that I have to convert my data from analog to digital. Then I have to read about how this data can processed from transmitter to receiver. Then what are the available codings with us, which can be used for the purpose of, means you can have different application for compression or for redundancy reduction or for many other things, right? Security, transparency. There may be lots of things, right? So we can summarize the whole discussion about digital communication in these three important points, right? Now, if we can start with that, the analog signal should always be converted to digital signal. So we know that normally the signals available with us are analog in nature, and analog signals and analog signals. What are these analog signals? The signals can be continuous in time domain as well as continuous in amplitude domain, right? So you can have a signal which can be named as analog. It will be continuous in time domain as well as continuous in amplitude domain. So these signals can be named as analog signal. And what I have to do, I have to convert these analog signals to digital signal. So digital signal will be discontinuous in time domain as well as discontinuous in amplitude domain. So it is a simple concept that CT, CA is analog signal and DT, DA is a digital signal. It is continuous in time, continuous in amplitude, and this is discontinuous in time, discontinuous in amplitude. So you can summarize this thing like this. So if they are asking that what are the analog signals, then you can say that analog signal can be a continuous signal and the continuous in both time as well as in amplitude domain. And what are the digital signals? So you can say that digital signals are discrete in time domain as well as discrete in amplitude domain. Then we can come to the process that how we can convert this continuous time, continuous amplitude to discrete time, discrete amplitude signal. You know that the process summarizes the sampling as well as quantization, right? And then you can perform a simple encoding, and the output can be a digital signal. So this is simple flow diagram. First, you have to apply a sampling, concept of sampling. Then you have to apply a concept of quantization, and then you can have encoding, and finally you can get the output of digital signal. So, for example, here you are having CA signal as an input, and from here you can get DT, DA signal as a output, right? So, definitely sampling. What is sampling? Sampling can do your signal discrete in time, right? And to achieve sampling, what you can do, you can simply multiply your signal by an impulse train, right? You can multiply your signal by an impulse train, then you can achieve sampling. Or practically, you can say that you can apply any switch, right? And the rate at which that switch will get on and off, you can get the samples and the output, right? This is a practical aspect. So, for example, here you are applying a switch, and the switch is continuously getting on and off, right? So, at the rate at which it is basically on and off, right? You can get here, you can apply a continuous signal. So I can write it C signal, continuous signal, and here you can get a discrete signal. Why I'm saying discrete? Because the signal is discontinuous in time domain only, right? This is the practical aspect. Theoretically, what you can do, you can multiply a continuous signal by an impulse train, right? Del T minus N TB, for example, this can be an impulse train. And you can multiply your signal by impulse train and you can get a sampled signal at the output. So sampled means you are picking some samples of a continuous signal, and definitely the rate at which you are picking the signal from the continuous signal, it should follow some mathematics, and that mathematics is given by Nyquist, and he said that the sampling frequency Fs is always greater than or equal to twice of Fm. This is required for why? Because of the reconstruction of the signal, right? Ultimately, you know that at the site of receiver, again I back the analog signal, right? So what I have to do, I have to recover the signal. So whatever the samplings you are taking from a continuous signal, ultimately you have to add these all samples to get a continuous signal. So the rate at which you are picking the samples, it should be at least greater than twice of Fm, right? Fs should be greater than or equal to twice of Fm. This condition should satisfy it. If this condition will not satisfy, it will be difficult to recover or reconstruct the signal at the site of receiver with the help of samples. So this we should know. This is something about sampling, and then we come to the quantization, which is the next part. Right? What is the quantization? In quantization, basically you are having fixed amplitude levels, right? You are having fixed amplitude levels, and you push your samples to those fixed levels, right? For example, for example, this is a simple continuous signal, and then you can have a sampled signal, right? For example, these are sampled values, right? Then you can have a sample like this, right? These can be the samples, we know it, right? Now, you know that there are certain amplitudes of every impulse, right? For example, this particular pulse is having this amplitude, this pulse is having this amplitude, right? So, for example, we are having fixed amplitude levels. For example, this is 0, then for example, it is 1 volt, then you can have a 2 volt line, right? Then you can have a 3 volt line. So it might be the case that some of the samples may lie on these fixed levels and some of the samples may have up and down to these levels, right? So what we'll do, we'll assume or we'll push or pull those samples to these fixed levels. So basically you are making your amplitude your amplitude of the samples at some fixed levels, right? So this process is known as quantization. So this is the quantization, and this make your signal discrete in amplitude domain, right? Discrete in amplitude domain. So you can say that by applying sampling and quantization process, you can have a discrete in amplitude as well as discrete in time domain signal. And then at last, what you can do, you can encode all these labels, right? You can encode all these labels. So for example, this is sample 1. Yeah? For example, how many samples we are taking? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, right? So you know that you want to encode 11 possible combinations, then you have to use at least 4 bits, right? Because with the help of 4 bits, you can have total 16 possible combinations, 2 to the power 4. So it means that first sample can be coded as 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Then the second one can be coded as 0, 0, 0, 0, 1. And then you can have similarly other codings. And what you can do now, you can serially arrange these symbols 0, 0, 0, 0, then 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, and so on. And this is the bit string which normally we say as a digital data bits or digital information bits, right? So this is the whole process which you will do in the first finger, that we have to convert the analog signal to digital signal. And if you talk about the practical device, you know that analog to digital converters are available with us, right? And we can use these analog to digital converters in the first step for the digital communication. And what we can do, we can convert all the analog information to digital information. And at the side of receiver, we can apply digital to analog converters again, right, to receive our data in the analog domain, right? Till now, everything is good.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So now we are coming to the second part of digital communication, in which we want to study about that how this digital information can transmit from receiver to from transmitter to receiver, right? We will talk about the second part. So the first part is over with us, that now we are converting the analog signals to digital signal. And then you can come to the next part, that how this digital data bits can transmitted from the channel. So once we are getting digital information bits with us, for example 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, whatever these bits are, now we know that these bits cannot travel into the channel. We have to give them some electrical pulses, right? So every 0 and 1s will have to be represented by some electrical pulses, right? This is important one, electrical pulses, right? Because these electrical pulses or electrical signal can travel through wire, or you can convert these electrical pulses into electromagnetic waves with the help of antenna, and those electromagnetic waves can travel into the wireless channel, right? So it is important to provide electrical pulses to these zeros and ones, right? So the process to provide these electrical pulses to these zeros and ones is known as line coding, right? And perhaps you remember that we have studied this line coding So what is the meaning of line coding? Line coding is the process when you are providing electrical pulses to zeros, ones, right? And there can be several types for it. You know that in line coding we are having different kind of uh, types. First, we can have a polar line code, then we can have a bipolar line code, then we can have a split phase coding, right? Then, or we can have Manchester coding with us. All these type of codings we have already listened. All these names we have already listened. Still one means he can ask that what is the polar codes? Can you tell me? So you can say that whenever you are representing the 1 by electrical pulse, and 0 is represented by minus of pt, it can be simply a polar code, right? Polar line code. Then further you can ask what is the meaning of RZ and NRZ format. So actually, when you are saying that I am using an electrical pulse to represent 0 or 1, right? So the method how you are representing zeros and ones, they can become the category of types of line coding. So polar, bipolar, and Manchester and split phase, these are the types of line coding, but these are the formats. Formats means the electrical pulse which you are picking to represent zeros and ones, you can use these electrical pulse like this, that this is 0 and this is TB, and further you can use such kind of pulse also to represent this is 0 and this is TB. This particular pulse is known as full width pulse, right? This is full width pulse. So you can name this as full width pulse. And this pulse is known as half width pulse. Means in the duration TB, this pulse is having 1 or having high level only at the half duration. And in this pulse from 0 to TB, the whole level of the pulse is at high level, right? So this is full width pulse and this is half width pulse. Whenever you use to represent 1 by PT and your PT is like this pulse, then it will be named as RZ format. And whenever you use this type of pulse, you will always have an RZ format. You can clearly see here from 0 the level is going to somewhat up level, and then again it is again coming back to 0 level, right? So this is a return to 0. RZ stands for return to 0. And similarly, the second type is non-return to 0, means the pulse is going in the up level and it is coming back only after TB duration, right? So this is RZ and NRZ format. So all these types can have both the formats. Means you can have polar RZ, polar NRZ, you can have bipolar RZ, bipolar NRZ, you can have split phase RZ, split phase NRZ, and you can have on-off polars, on-off line coding, right? So again, you can have on-off RZ and on-off NRZ. So these are the types of line coding. I don't know if they ask this thing to you, you can explain what is the meaning of line coding, right? What is the meaning of line coding? So you can say that whenever you are providing electrical pulses to zeros and ones, this process is known as line coding. And only if you are providing electrical pulses, these electrical pulses can only travel from transmitter to the receiver, right? It is either communication, either it is a wireless or it is a wired, right? It is in middle. Always you need this kind of line coding scheme. Right? Now, if you provide line coding, it means that for a particular data bits 010, you got a electrical signal, right? Like this. For example, this is an electrical signal, and then you can transfer this electrical signal to channel, right? You can transfer this electrical signal to channel, and then this electrical signal can transmit from transmitter to receiver. So this is the concept of line coding. Now, if you see that before transmission to channel, right, we also has to see that either there is any redundancy in this information bit or not, right? So we'll cover this part in the third this finger, coding related to digital data. Till now, I'm just explaining that you have provided electrical pulses to zeros and ones, and then these zeros and ones, and these electrical pulses can travel from transmitter to channel. If you are having a wired channel, then these pulses directly can go to the wire. Otherwise, you have to use an antenna, and then you have to convert all these pulses to electromagnetic waves from the antenna, and then those electromagnetic waves can travel into the wireless, right? Now, we are coming to the channel. This channel is again a very important aspect because in this second part, we are studying about how this digital data can be transmitted. So this how world is a very large world, right? So channel also play a crucial role. Channel also play an important role because it is a place where noise can come, right? It is a place where noise can come. So if you are taking channel as a reference, again you can say that you can have two types of communication. One can be wired communication, and the second can be wireless communication, right? So again, see, till now here, till this point, the communication is digital communication. And beyond this, you can have digital communication through wired medium or digital communication through wireless medium, right? So it is not true that in some of the cases people think that wired communication is analog communication. No, digital communication can be wired communication, digital communication can be wireless communication. Similarly, analog communication can also be wired and wireless. It is not an issue, right? Because you are dividing the communication in these two categories when you are taking channel as a reference. So if channel is wired, then the communication will be wired communication. If channel is wireless, the channel communication will be wireless communication. If anybody want to say that, clarify what is analog communication and what is digital communication, how we decide. So in one line you can answer it that if your information is analog, the communication is analog. If your information is digital, the communication is digital. As simple as that. The all type of processing of digital data will come in the category of digital communication. The all type of processing of analog data will come in the category of analog communication, right? So now, if you are transmitting the data from the channel, then you know that channel is a place where noise can come into the signal. And there is one important term came into the picture here because we are transmitting the signals in somewhat in the rectangular type of format, right? So you know that whenever you are transmitting ones and zeros with the help of these rectangular pulses, and if we are talking about channel, we know that normally channel can be think as somewhat in a frequency domain, right? So normally we say that the channel which is available with us, we characterize the channel in terms of frequency, some of gigahertz or kilohertz or these kind of terms we are using whenever we are describing the channel. So it means that whenever we say that the electrical pulses are we are transmitting electrical pulses from the channel, then if we convert this electrical pulse into the frequency domain, or we use the Fourier transform. If we use Fourier transform, then we know that the Fourier transform of the electrical pulse will be a sync pulse, right? This is a sync pulse, right? So we talk about this electrical pulse, so the Fourier transform of this pulse. मुझे लग रहा है किसी का okay, fine. So whenever we are converting the electrical pulse to frequency domain, then it will become a sync pulse, and we know that sync pulse starts from minus infinity and goes till plus infinity, right? It means that practically to transmit this electrical pulse, a rectangle electrical pulse, we need infinite bandwidth, right? We need infinite bandwidth channel. They may ask a question that what is the bandwidth required for a single bit uh, to transmit a single bit if the single bit is represented by a rectangle pulse of 0 to TB time period, right? So 0 to TB bit duration. So normally people what people will do, they tell the answer 1 upon TB is the 1 upon TB is the frequency, and this is the bandwidth which we need to transmit this bit. But it is not true. We know that to calculate the frequency requirement, what we have to do, we should always convert the time domain signal to frequency domain signal, and then we have to see what is the bandwidth of the signal, right? That the bandwidth which is coming after this Fourier transform, it is a real bandwidth which is needed by channel to transmit this bit. So this is a time domain bit, rectangle bit, and we know that the sync pulse is the Fourier representation of this rectangle pulse, and which needs minus infinite to plus infinite bandwidth to travel from the channel. So ideally, what I mean to say that the single bit, for the single bit transmission, we need infinite bandwidth, and which is really a challenge for us. We know that we don't have infinite bandwidth with us. We are always a band limited system. We are always a band limited system. And if your system is band limited, then how these bits can travel? This is a thing. So you can say that all the practical channels are normally band limited, right? Are normally band limited. So if you are having band limited channel, then how you can transmit these bits, ones and zeros from this channel? So what the solution may occur into our mind that because most of the information of this bit is having in this main lobe, right? All these nearby lobes are having very less amount of energy. So what we can do, we can either truncate this pulse into a limited band, or you can suppress these endpoints to in a limited bandwidth, right? So we know that time and frequency both are interrelated concepts. So if you shrink this pulse in frequency domain, corresponding time domain pulse will expand. So what will happen? If you do so, then what will happen? You can again redraw it here. So for example, this is 0, this is TB, this is 2 TB line, fine. So this is your bit, and if you are shrinking your frequency domain signal into the fixed bandwidth, then you are shrinking in frequency domain, then time domain you will go beyond this TB duration, right? So ultimately this bit will go in this direction, fine. And definitely the nearby bit, for example, here you are having a nearby bit. Again, you do same thing for this nearby bit also. So what will happen? It will again expand like this, right? So you can see here that this is a portion where both of these bits are overlapping with each other, and we know that this is known as the concept of ISI, which is intersymbol interference. So basically, what I mean to say that ISI can be a very interesting thing which anyone can ask you that what is ISI. So you can explain it like this: that all the practical channels are band limited, and normally if we use a rectangle pulse to transmit our bit, then ideally it needs infinite bandwidth, which is not practically possible. So what we can do, we can shrink this pulse into the bandwidth domain, or we can truncate this pulse, right? So you can use either word. So I can truncate this pulse in frequency domain, And if you do so, if you truncate this pulse in a frequency domain, the pulse will get expanded in the time domain. And if the pulse is going beyond the TB, which is a bit duration, which is the authorized bit duration for a single pulse, if this pulse is going beyond that limit, it will definitely going to interfere with the nearby pulse. So two nearby pulses are interfering to each other. That's why the word which came into the picture is intersymbol interference. Right? And see, this is a very practical situation. It is not a noise. So you can say that ISI is not a noise. Right? ISI is not a noise. ये noise नहीं है. ISI is not a noise. It is a distortion. It is a distortion. And distortion because of channel. Because of channel. Because when when a bit is coming to the channel, right? Channel is saying that I am band limited. Channel is saying to the bit that I am band limited. So if you come to me, then definitely your time domain will somewhat expand. You have to expand your time domain. Only then you can pass through me, right? So this is the thing which channel is doing. No external body or no external thing is coming to your signal, right? And we know that noise is an unwanted signal which is normally coming from external things, right? So exactly, this is not a noise. This is the distortion because of channel, and channel is helpless because practical channel will always be band limited. So band limited channel will always produce some of ISI in your bit, whatever the bit you want to transmit through that channel, because ideally that bit is needed infinite, require infinite bandwidth, right? And infinite bandwidth is not possible with the channel. So channel always be band limited. So whenever you apply a rectangle pulse to the band limited channel, automatically ISI will be there, right? So it is not a noise, it is a distortion because of channel, because of the practical channel. What is the solution? That you can use ideal channel. Ideal channel means the channel which is having infinite bandwidth. If you are using the channel which is having infinite bandwidth, then you cannot have ISI. So this is the first and possible solution for ISI. If anybody is saying that how we can reduce ISI or remove ISI, you can say that you can use ideal channel, which is not a exactly solution. You can say that it is a theoretical limit or theoretical condition. You can use ideal bandwidth channel and you can reduce or remove ISI, but it's not practically possible. So other solutions are you can use good filters, right? You can use good filters which can at the side of receiver, which can reduce this ISI domain, or which can take away this ISI interfere reason from the received bits, right? This can be a solution. The second solution is that you can use the sampling frequency which is high than twice of FM. So in that condition also you can have less amount of ISI or zero ISI, but in that case again bandwidth requirement will increase, right? So these can be the possible solution for ISI. Nyquist has suggested that one possible thing is what that you can also make some changes in pulse shape, right? And if you are doing so, then you are not compromising with bandwidth. You have not to use any extra filter. You have not to do anything. Just change the pulse shape. The pulse shape is should not be a rectangle bit. It should have some other shape. And if you're using that kind of shape in your communication, then you can have less amount of ISI, or it's not practically possible to remove ISI from the communication, but yes, it is possible to come down the ISI in the bearable limits, right? So the whole story starts from this point, that when you are providing the electrical pulses to zeros and ones, because you have chosen the size or shape of the pulse which was rectangle, that's why these whole things came into the picture, that ISI will be there, and then this ISI will definitely not a noise, but it will harm your signal. So the effect or the outcome of ISI will be similar to the noise, right? So definition wise, it is not noise, it is a distortion which is because of channel, but basically it harms your signal, it deteriorates your signal, it disturbs your bits, so it can have the effect of similar to the noise. So this is the thing, ISI, and what we have discussed, that ISI is not a noise, it can be a distortion because of channel, but it can harm the signal, right? The information in this part which is overlapping to each other can be lost. What are the possible solutions? So among all those solutions that you are using a good filter, you are using a good Nyquist sampling frequency, you can have also the solution that can lead a new concept of pulse shaping, right? If you are using a good pulse, rather than I should say appropriate pulse, right? Then you can have the impact on ISI and you can reduce ISI. And Nyquist has suggested some of the pulse shaping criteria. Right? And we have already studied those pulse shaping criteria in the class. Nyquist first criteria, and then we can have Nyquist second and third criteria. And ultimately, we reached onto the conclusion that raised cosine spectrum can be a possible shape, right? And with the use of this raised cosine spectrum, yes, you can reduce or you can have partial control on ISI. So this is all about ISI. Now, if we want to transmit our signal from transmitter to the channel, so rather than we are using these electrical pulses in a rectangular format, we should use some appropriate pulse shape so that we can reduce ISI. Now we are considering this that we are using this kind of pulse shape to represent these zeros and ones, and if we are transmitting these new modified pulses to channel, then yes, ISI can be in our control. Now, if you are coming to the channel part, then you know that there is a word which came into the picture is modulation, right? In some cases, you can directly transmit the signal from transmitter to receiver, means without modulation, and in some cases you need modulation. And here, rather than simply say we should say the modulation, we should say this is a carrier modulation, right? So here we should say carrier modulation, because in many terms in digital communication, in many terms you are listening this word that this is a modulation, this is a modulation. So modulation is a word which suggests that if you are doing any modification in the signal, it means that you are doing modulation. But the application, or sorry, but the objectives may be different, right? For of the modulation. For example, you are studying pulse code modulation. So in pulse code modulation, what you are doing, you are having an analog signal and converting that analog signal to digital signal till encoding. Then the output can be named as PCM, pulse code modulation. So pulse code modulation are basically in the category of waveform coding techniques, waveform coding schemes. These are not the carrier modulation schemes. These are waveform coding schemes. So PCM, delta modulation, adaptive delta modulation, right? All these come into the category of waveform coding schemes. So these are the term modulation is associated with these concepts. But here we are not meaning with these modulation as a carrier modulation. Carrier modulation means when you need extra signal, so that that signal can carry your information from transmitter to receiver. So all those modulation schemes can be named as carrier modulation schemes, right? So in carrier modulation schemes, you need extra carrier. So if you study these carrier modulation schemes, then you can see that in digital communication, you can have the possibility of ASK, PSK, and FSK, right? Amplitude shifting, phase shifting, and frequency shifting. Right? These can be three possible modulation schemes which you can use if you want to use carrier modulation schemes. Otherwise, these are the terms PCM, PM, ADM. These are waveform coding schemes. Definitely, if your communication is binary, then these schemes can be further named as binary ASK, binary PSK, and binary FSK. So if you say binary PSK, then the term came into the picture is BPSK, right? And if this is not binary, this is amery, right? this is somewhat advanced concept. If you use M-Array modulation schemes, M-Array modulation. What is the meaning of M-Array? If you are having sampled values, right? If the sampled values, you can code those sampled values with the help of only a single bit, right? For example, you are having a signal or you are having a sample, and you can code that sample in just two levels, either yes or no, right? So in that case, you need only binary digits. Binary, this can be named as binary communication because you are needing only two bits, either ones or zeros. So if you are using either one or zero, then it is a binary communication. So if you are using yes or no, it is a binary communication. So if you are sampling this analog signal and all the sampled values can either be coded in yes or no, then it is a binary coding schemes, right? But it is not always possible because if your continuous signal is sampled, and for example you are taking total 8 or 9 samples or 4 samples from that continuous signal, then it is not possible to import that signal only in two levels, yes or no. What I am saying here, I am saying, for example, you are taking 4 samples. You are taking 4 samples. So what it means, that sample 1 can be imported by 0 0, it can be 0 1, it can be 1 0, it can be 1 1. Right? So here your levels are 4. Your levels are 4. Right? So if you are having 4 level, then your coding schemes will be 0 0 0 1 1 0 1 1. It is not like yes or no. If you are having only 2 level, right, then you can code 1 by 0 and 2 by 1, for example. So if you are having such kind of situation with you, where only you can tackle all the coding, all the information with only these two levels, yes or no, right, 0 or 1, then you can say it is a binary communication. Otherwise, it can be 4-array communication, means 4-level communication, 8-level communication, 16-level communication. So in general, you can say that it is M-level communication. So that M-level modulation can be renamed as M-Array modulation, right? M-Array modulation. So this is the concept. So if you are using M-Array modulation, then you can also have the concept of QPSK, quadrature phase shift key, right? Quadrature phase shift key. See, in quadrature phase shifting, we are having total 4 levels. In binary phase shifting, we are having only 2 levels. So this can be the case of quadrature phase shifting. This can be the case of binary phase shifting, right? And what is the definition of amplitude shifting, PSK and FSK? It is as simple. In amplitude shifting, you are having the carrier and the data is in terms of zeros and ones. So what you will do, you can either simply multiply the carrier with zeros and ones. So the output waveform which you will get, if I want to plot the output waveform of PSK, PSK and FSK. So for example, this is 1 0 1 0, right? So this is your information bit, and to modulate this information bit, you are using a carrier. So for example, the carrier is analog in nature, like this. This is the carrier, which is having frequency FC. Now for amplitude modulation ASK, what you will do, you simply replicate the same carrier for 1, and if you multiply the carrier with 0, you will get 0, right? This is amplitude shifting, where for 1 you are having amplitude, for 0 you are having amplitude, for 1 you are having amplitude, for 0 you are not having an amplitude. So this is simply ASK. Similarly, you can plot PSK, right? Or first you should plot FSK. So for example, FSK means frequency shifting. So for 1, for example, you are assuming that for 1 we are having high frequency and for 0 we are having low frequency. So to represent 1, what I will do, I will make a high frequency signal, and for 0 I will make a low frequency signal. For 1 again I will make a high frequency signal, right? And for 0 again I will make a low frequency signal. So this is frequency shifting waveform. Similarly, if you want to draw the PSK, right, phase shifting waveform. So for phase shifting waveform, if we are using binary phase shifting, binary signal, binary communication, then simply what you can do, you can have to change the phase. For example, this is 1, right? And for 0, what you have to do, I have to change the phase, right? So I change the phase And because it is binary communication, so the change will be 180 degree, right? So this is the phase change. Again, you are having 0, then again you are having 1. So for 1, again you will have to change the phase, and for 0, again you have to change the phase. And if 2 consecutive bits are same, then there will be no phase change. So this can be a simple PSK waveform. So these are ASK, PSK, and FSK. These are the modulation schemes, carrier modulation schemes. And why we want to do modulation? We know that the primary need for the modulation is that our signal is not having sufficient amount of strength, so it cannot travel for the long distance. So to make it travel for the long distance, what I'm using a carrier, and this carrier will carry this information and it can go to a long distance. The second thing is that you can use the modulation to reduce the antenna height, you know it, and then you can, for multiplexing, you can use modulation, and there are many applications, right? So you can use those applications, and because of those applications, you can do modulation at the transmitter side. And after doing modulation, now you can go to the channel, and your data will travel from the channel, and it will reach up to the receiver, right? So this was that how the digital data can be transmitted. Now we are coming to the third important part, which can be the coding, other coding things, where we are doing basically coding here in this digital communication. So to understand that coding part, if you understand, if you want to see the block diagram, then for example, here you can have an analog to digital converter, and after that you can apply the block of source coder, and beyond the source coder you can apply a block of channel coder, right? And after doing this channel coding, you can do modulation, and then you can transmit your data to channel, right? And at the side of receiver, all these blocks will be reversed. So here you will have demodulator, then D channel decoder, then D source coder, then digital to analog converter, and the final output, right? So it can be simple main blocks for digital communication. So among all those things which we have already studied, right? We have also we have to do these source coding and channel coding with our data, our information. Why? Because whenever we are converting the signal from analog to digital, the number of bits which are coming into the picture, it might be the situation those bits are repetitive in nature, or there may be some redundancy in the information. Redundancy means that you are repeating the same thing again and again. So ultimately, in digital communication, it will consume the bandwidth, or you can say that it will just waste your bandwidth, because you are saying the same thing and again, and you are consuming the whole communication block or communication channel. Okay, so you can use this source coding scheme to reduce the redundancy. In some terms, we can also say that we are basically compressing the data here. So you can also say that it can be a compression code. Ultimately, in all kind of compression, the certain amount of information will get lost also. So whenever you want to reduce redundancy, yes, we basically want to reduce the repetition part. Why? Because again and again, I don't want to send the same thing from the channel, right? So this is the example. This is the objective of source codings, right? And then we can come to the channel coding part. The channel codings are basically having just reverse objective. We are using channel coding just to add redundancy, right? Now the question comes, in the first block we are basically reducing the redundancy, and in the second block, just next to the source coding, we are having a block which is basically adding the redundancy. So see, whenever you are converting the analog information to digital information, the amount of redundancy which came into the picture is basically uncontrollable. right? It is naturally coming from the process of analog to digital conversion. So this redundancy is uncontrollable. This is not in my control, right? And I don't want anything which is not in my control, because ultimately the user has to recover the signal at the side of the receiver. So the amount of redundancy should always be in the controlled fashion, or in the controlled way, so that the user can reduce the such kind of redundancy at the side of receiver. And the question it become important with us, that why this redundancy is required. First, we are saying that we have to reduce the redundancy because we don't want to waste our bandwidth. It is true, because redundancy is uncontrollable in nature. That's why we don't want to send this uncontrollable redundancy to the channel, right? But in the next block, we are adding redundancy. Why? Because we also want to compensate the noise effect which are going to come into the channel. See, redundancy can help you in the noise part, because for example, you are transmitting one bit and it get noise into the channel, and this bit basically lost because of noise. So if you are not resetting this bit, then ultimately this bit is completely gone from the picture, right? But if you are saying that I am repeating it this one more time, so it might be the chance that the second time the channel may not hurt your bit, and this bit is received at the side of receiver. So some amount of redundancy is required, some amount of repetition in the information is required, so that the noise can be compensated at the side of receiver. So redundancy, here we are adding redundancy to compensate the noise. Here we are reducing the redundancy for the sake of bandwidth, right? So objective of source coding and objective of channel coding is different. Objective of channel coding is to deal with noise, and objective of source coding is to deal with the bandwidth, right? So this also we should know. And if we are talking about codings, we know that whatever the things which we want to transmit from the channel, it should be always meaningful, because we know that we don't have the bandwidth in which we can send anything, right? And so for this, we are having tools in digital communication, so that you can measure the information contained into the that message which is coming from any source. If we are having a good amount of information contained, then and if we are transmitting this kind of information from channel, then it will be good for us, because in this way we are utilizing our bandwidth in an efficient way. And if we are sending some garbage things, or the messages which are not having any information, then definitely it is a kind of waste in communication. It is a kind of waste of your bandwidth and your resources. So for that, you can also understand the concepts of measurement of information. Right? So if you do measurement of information, we know that the term which is coming into the picture is entropy, right? And what is the meaning of entropy? Entropy is the average number of bits required for the message so that it can be transmitted successfully from the source to destination. This is entropy of the system. So in parallel to all those line coding and modulation, we also have to do the analysis of such kind of information with our source. So all these things are basically parallel. They are not serial. We are not doing one by one. We are doing parallelly all the things. We are converting the data into digital. Similarly, we are doing line coding on the same part. We are also analyzing the information, the bits for the information. Means either I am doing the line coding and all process. It is worthful or not. It is worth or not, right? Because if the information contained in that bit is not good, or the message is not worth to transmit, then what is the need to do line coding and all processing, right? So we are doing all the things parallelly. So we also have to calculate the information, and the measurement of the information. The tool by which you can measure the information can be named as entropy. And normally we say that the messages which are less probable they are having high amount of information. So we can say that information is directly proportional to 1 upon P. P is the probability, right? P is the probability. So what I am saying that information is basically inversely proportional to the probability. So the messages which are less probable, the messages which are less probable, they are having high amount of information, and similarly the messages which are having high probability, they are basically less amount of information. Again, I am repeating, I don't know what I have said. Information is directly proportional to 1 upon probability. So it means that if probability is less, then information is high. If the probability is having high value, then the information will be small or less, right? So what I mean to say that whenever the probability is high, means the things which are very obvious, or which are very sure, they are normally treated as high probability. So wherever we are having obvious things, the information is always very less. And wherever we are having the things which are less probable, they are always have high amount of information. So we can think on it that we have to clarify or segregate all the messages from the source, that some of the messages are having high information content and some of the messages are having low information content. And we can take the help of the thing that if some message is having high information content, we can give them more bits to encode, and if some information is having less amount of information, messages having less amount of information, then we can give them less number of bits. For example, any source is generating some messages like this is S0, this is S1, this is S2, this is S3. So you can, one thing you can use that, you can do the coding which is very simple, that to encode all these 4 levels, you can use 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, without thinking that among these all 4 possible messages, which is having high information content and which is having low information content. So this kind of coding is basically known as fixed length coding, right? In which you are not thinking about the information content in the message, and you are just doing the coding equally, or you are providing equal number of bits to every message. But if you know, for example, these S2 and S3 are very important messages for me, and they should go at the receiver with high security, then what we can do, we can use 1, 0 and 1, 1 for these 2 messages, and we know that these 2 messages are less important for me. So what we can do, we can employ a single bit to transmit this message. So this is named as variable length coding. Variable length coding, and definitely this variable length coding can have impact on entropy, because entropy is the average number of bit required, average number of bit needed, right? So if you see if you use the variable length coding, you can have impact on entropy, or you can reduce the average number of bits required to transmit information. And if you do so, definitely you will have edge on the bandwidth part, right? We know that we don't have much amount of bandwidth with us, so that we can transmit any number of bits, right? So this is somewhat coding part, and we can have different types of coding. For example, Huffman coding, Shannon-Fanow coding, which are very popular as source coding or data compression coding. And then we can have some error detection and correction schemes. We know that we can have Hamming codes. We can have linear block codes for error correction and detection. And then we are having some algorithm like Viterbi algorithm and convolution coding schemes, code tree. They can be very large things to discuss here. So ultimately, if in the coding part they want to ask, they can ask about source coding, channel coding, about entropy, about information. So you can go through these all things. And if they go in detail, then they can also ask some of the concepts related to error detection and correction. Then you can say that there are a possibility of codes which can detect the error as well as correct the error. So most popular codes are available with us are linear block codes or convolution codes, which can detect the error, and they are basically correct the errors up to single bit, or in some cases more than single bit.